When Jackie Chan first spoke about Islam, the world didn't believe what they were hearing. A man known for his humor, his stunts, and his unstoppable energy suddenly turned philosopher, and his words carried the weight of decades of travel, observation, and wisdom. "I've worked in almost every country," he began, "but there's something different when you step into a Muslim land. The people walk with humility, they greet you with peace, and they pray with purpose." The room fell silent. This wasn't the Jackie Chan known for jumping from rooftops or laughing through interviews. This was a man who had seen the world and come back with truth in his eyes. He talked about how, during one of his movie shoots in Morocco, the film crew paused at sunset. "I thought there was a power outage," he laughed, "but everyone just stopped, laid down their mats, and prayed. 5 minutes later, the world continued like nothing happened, but I could still feel the calm." He said that was the moment he realized Islam wasn't just a religion, it was discipline and devotion woven into life itself. In a world that's losing control, he said, these people found balance, not in money, not in fame, but in faith. His words struck a chord with millions. Social media erupted. Some criticized him for being too soft, while others thanked him for saying what so many had been afraid to. But Jackie Chan didn't back down. "I've been in Hollywood for years," he said in another interview, "and I've seen how people chase freedom by losing themselves. But in Islam, I saw people finding freedom by controlling themselves. That's real strength." He predicted that the world would one day look back at Islam not as something foreign or feared, but as the philosophy that saved human balance. "Mark my words," he said, "a time will come when the West will turn its eyes to the East, not for kung fu, not for culture, but for clarity." Those words went viral overnight. Clips were translated into dozens of languages. In Malaysia, people printed his quote on posters. In Turkey, talk shows debated it. In America, commentators tried to downplay it. But the truth had already escaped the cage. Jackie's message wasn't about conversion. It was about connection. He said, "When I see Muslims, I see people who wake up with gratitude, who wash before prayer, not just to clean their body, but their mind. That's powerful. That's what the modern world is missing." He spoke about his time visiting a mosque in Indonesia, where a small boy offered him dates and water. "He didn't know who I was," Jackie laughed softly, "and that's what made it special. He wasn't serving a celebrity. He was serving a guest. That's Islam. It teaches service without expectation." Later in an interview in Dubai, he said something that shook the entertainment world. "Fame made me proud, but faith, even when it's not mine, makes me humble." He explained that his travels across Asia showed him that Muslim families had a strength that modern societies were losing. "They stay together," he said. "They take care of their parents. They respect their elders. That's not weakness. That's civilization." The audience applauded, but he wasn't done. He leaned forward and said quietly, "You know, I'm not Muslim, but I've seen Muslims live the way many of us only preach. I think that's why Islam will keep growing, because people are hungry for meaning." That line became the headline everywhere. Jackie Chan, people are hungry for meaning. That line became the headline everywhere. Jackie Chan, people are hungry for meaning, and Islam has it. But the real shock came later when he made what he called his bold prediction. He said, "I believe in 50 years, maybe less, Islam won't just be a religion people talk about. It'll be the moral compass of the modern world, because when the lights of technology blind us, faith will be the only thing that helps us see again." His audience gasped. Some clapped, some stayed silent, but everyone felt the gravity of what he said. He continued, "When I was younger, I thought strength was in the body. Now I know strength is in the spirit, and Muslims have mastered that." He told a story about meeting a group of Muslim stuntmen who prayed before every dangerous scene. They said, "Brother Jackie, we trust Allah with our lives," and they meant it. That kind of courage isn't trained, it's born from faith. His eyes glistened as he recalled it. That's what the world needs, fearless people with faithful hearts. By the time he finished his speech, the hall was silent again, but it wasn't confusion anymore, it was reflection. People weren't just listening to Jackie Chan, they were rethinking what they thought they knew about Islam. He ended with one last sentence that echoed across continents. Maybe the world doesn't need more action heroes, maybe it needs more people of action guided by faith. Those words became a global phenomenon. Mosques quoted him in Friday sermons. Youth groups shared his clips. Even non-Muslims began using his speech as a reminder that spirituality and strength can exist together. And somewhere in that global storm of reaction, Jackie Chan went quiet again, as if his job was done. In one interview months later, he smiled when asked about the controversy. "I didn't say anything new," he replied. "I just said what my heart saw. Sometimes the truth doesn't need to be new, it just needs to be heard again." And that's the power of his bold prediction, not in what it promised, but in what it reminded humanity of, that peace is not weakness, humility is not submission, and Islam, when seen with open eyes, is not a mystery but a mirror, showing us what we've lost and what we still could become. After Jackie Chan's words spread across the world, it was as if a wave of reflection hit the global consciousness. Television networks tried to twist his meaning. Headlines shouted, "Jackie Chan praises Islam," and political commentators tried to spin it into controversy. But beneath all the noise, millions of ordinary people were listening, really listening. In Indonesia, children wrote essays about faith and humility. In the UK, university students debated whether a celebrity's words could really influence spiritual understanding. In the Middle East, scholars quietly smiled and said, he has seen the truth through his travels. Jackie himself stayed calm amid the chaos. "I didn't predict religion," he said softly in a later interview. "I predicted awakening." He spoke like a man who had seen too much of both worlds, the spiritual and the superficial. And that's exactly what people felt. His words didn't come from politics or publicity. They came from wisdom earned through life's bruises. Weeks after the viral moment, he was invited to a cultural event in Qatar. Standing before a crowd of students and thinkers, Jackie said, "I didn't expect my words to travel so far, but maybe that's what truth does. It doesn't need a ticket." The crowd laughed, but then fell silent as he continued. "When I look at young Muslims today, I see the same thing I saw in martial arts: discipline, respect, patience. The world has mocked those values, but those are the values that build peace." His humility won hearts. He told the audience that in martial arts, a fighter learns to control anger before power, and in Islam, a believer learns to control desire before action. Both, he said, are paths to mastery, one of the body, the other of the soul. Clips of that speech went viral again, this time reaching millions across Asia and Africa. Youth influencers began quoting him, posting his lines with captions like "Strength is in the spirit" and "Faith is the discipline the world forgot." Jackie didn't reply to any of it. He just smiled when asked. "I'm not trying to be a teacher," he said. "I'm just a student who's learning how deep life can be." But his words had already ignited something powerful. In France, a young woman who had left her faith messaged him publicly, "Your speech reminded me that Islam isn't oppression, it's order. Thank you for showing me peace in something I'd forgotten." That comment alone gathered hundreds of thousands of likes. Meanwhile, Western media hosts tried to push back. One asked him live, "Jackie, are you saying Islam is better than other religions?" Jackie chuckled kindly. "No," he said. "I'm saying Islam hasn't lost its direction. Many of us have." That line silenced the entire studio. It was bold, unapologetic, and true. He wasn't comparing religions. He was comparing reality and true. He wasn't comparing religions. He was comparing realities. He said every faith started with peace, but only some kept practicing it. And when asked about extremists, he didn't hesitate. "You can't judge a tree by a few broken branches," he said. "Look at the roots. That's where the truth lives." That one statement became one of the most replayed clips of his career, quoted even by scholars who called it wisdom beyond script. Soon after, he received letters from Muslim leaders around the world, from Pakistan, Egypt, and Nigeria, all thanking him for speaking with fairness and honesty. One imam from Malaysia wrote, "You may not be Muslim, but you've reminded Muslims how to be proud of their faith again." Jackie replied personally, saying, "I didn't do it for thanks. I did it because peace deserves a voice." Months passed, and yet the echo of his prediction refused to fade. Documentaries began featuring his comments. Young filmmakers in Jordan created short films titled Faith and Balance using his quotes. In one particularly emotional scene, a boy says, "My hero isn't just Jackie Chan the fighter, it's Jackie Chan the thinker." The idea that a global action star could become a bridge between cultures fascinated people. Even religious critics who once dismissed celebrities as shallow began admitting that Jackie had opened a conversation that scholars hadn't been able to. His approach was simple but powerful: respect. He often said, when you respect a person's faith, you respect their peace. During one awards ceremony in Hong Kong, he mentioned how he'd started meditating before filming, inspired by the discipline he saw in Muslims praying. "It centers you," he explained. "When your heart is calm, your body follows." The audience, mostly from entertainment circles, gave him a standing ovation. But the most emotional moment came when a young Muslim fan from Syria sent him a letter that said, "My family lost everything in war, but your words reminded me that we still have faith, and that's everything." Jackie read it aloud at an event, his voice breaking slightly. "This," he said, "is why words matter. Because sometimes faith is the only thing that keeps people standing." That night, he ended his speech with another quiet prediction. "You will see, the future will belong to those who walk humbly, who bow only to God, and who protect goodness no matter what name they call it." Those who heard it knew exactly who he was referring to. His bold prediction about Islam was no longer just about religion. It was about humanity rediscovering meaning in a world of noise. Analysts later noted that after his speech, interest in Islamic culture surged online, not in politics, but in its values, art, and way of life. People searched terms like why Muslims pray 5 times or what does peace mean in Islam more than ever before. Jackie Chan had unknowingly done what few global figures dared to do. He had made curiosity fashionable again. He had made truth trend. And while many waited for him to backtrack, he never did. In one of his last interviews about the topic, he said, "I've seen power, I've seen fame, I've seen failure. But what I saw in Islam, I saw peace that no success could buy. And I think the world will soon realize that too." The interviewer asked, "So that's your final message?" Jackie smiled and said, "No, that's just my observation. The final message belongs to time, and time will prove it right." And with that, he stood, bowed respectfully, and walked away, leaving behind a silence heavier than applause and a world still echoing with the words of a man who had seen enough of chaos to recognize where real peace lived. Months turned into years, and Jackie Chan's words aged like prophecy. What began as a viral moment had quietly transformed into a global shift in conversation. Across Europe and Asia, more people began revisiting what Islam truly represented, not through politics, but through behavior, compassion, and balance. In universities, professors played clips of Jackie's interviews while discussing cultural harmony. In podcasts, young Muslims quoted him as the man who saw faith with open eyes. His prediction, once mocked by critics, began unfolding in front of them. Western philosophers started publishing essays about discipline and spirituality, referencing the Islamic lifestyle that Jackie had praised. Even Hollywood, slowly and cautiously, began embracing stories of Muslim characters with dignity instead of stereotypes. And when Jackie was asked years later what he thought about it all, he smiled gently and said, "I told you, peace doesn't need to fight to win, it just needs time." That became the closing line of a documentary made about his journey, The Fighter Who Found Faith in Others. He was never trying to convert, never preaching. He was simply observing the human condition. With honesty few dare to speak. Islam, he once said, reminded me that true strength is quiet. And that line, more than any of his punches or stunts, became his legacy. From Kuala Lumpur to London, billboards carried his quote, "Discipline without ego, that's faith." The same man who once united the world with laughter and action had now united it with reflection and respect. And perhaps that's why people say Jackie Chan didn't just make movies, he made moments that moved souls. His bold prediction about Islam wasn't just about the rise of a faith, it was about the awakening of humanity, a reminder that when the world drowns in noise, truth still speaks softly, and that sometimes it takes a warrior to remind us where peace truly lives.